Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Parents. I'll bet you they've said the same things for generations. My mother used to say this, and I know I've said it to my kids. Just look at that dirt on the back of your neck. Just look at that dirt on the back of your neck. Or my mom used to say, shut your mouth and eat your supper. But one of my all-time favorites, if you fall out of that swing and break your neck, you're not going to the store with me. Oh, parents, we do say the darndest things. Good morning, here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a patriot to call in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. There you go, the wonderful Kate Smith. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, and, of course, our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a huge fall tire sale going on right now. And also, don't forget some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them 734-6969. Right now, without further ado, let's get our Pledge of Allegiance on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well done, my dear friend. And I know I'm going to have some subject matter here that you're going to be talking about in a little bit, but thank you very much.
Betcha, sir.
God bless. Thank you. Oh, my goodness, that was great. Right now, we're going to scoot to the weather. And the weather brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for that blue door. You better believe it. All your carpet and flooring, kitchen, construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home. I've been telling you that they're having a huge fall sale going on right now through the month of October. And don't forget, Halloween is coming up pretty quick. You better come on in for treats and crafts and fun. All of that right there at Cheney Flooring and Home Design. And it's going to be, let's see, they're going to have kind of a spook night open house, and it's going to be October 21st. And all you have to do is register at $16 and register online at CheneyHomeDesign.com. Right now, here is Gina with the weather.
Looks like it's still going to be on the breezy side for today. Here is what your weather looks like. Winds out of the southwest right around 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies. Looking at a high of 54 for today. Tonight low of 37. Tomorrow exactly the same as today. Partly cloudy skies. Still slightly breezy. High of 54 with an overnight low of 35. Partly cloudy and 56 for Thursday. And for Friday and Saturday, sunny skies. Highs are going to be in the low to mid 60s. Still might want to keep those veggies covered up in the evening hours as our temperatures are getting close to the freezing point. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 41. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Boy, she does a great job on that forecast. And by the way, I'm going to have special thanks go out to her in just a moment. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for that blue door. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, bringing you the weather. Hey, don't forget on Thursdays, Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley, and that's with Merv, May, Cade, Rocky, Lance, Udy, the whole crew at the sale that works for you. Sale time 11 o'clock, and don't forget the number to call for cattle consignment number in information on the sales, 678-9411. Burley Livestock Sale Yard, sale on Thursdays. I want to remind you how much I appreciate the people that jump in and help when others are not available. And Wheels was feeling a little under the weather the last couple of days, and Gina just jumped right in and handled everything, and I want to say God bless and thank you to her. And Wheels, you're back, and I hope you're on the mend. I missed you, buddy.
Yeah, I am, and I missed you too. I understand that a lot of people were asking about me. So it's just, with how my body is and my immune system, I, occasionally have these type of things pop up. And, of course, I got the double whammy of having something going on with my leg and, on top of it, having an eye infection. So
oh, my goodness.
I take the day off yesterday to kind of try to recoup and make sure that I'd be fine to come in today, and all is well. So thank you all so much, and for everybody who was out there praying for me. And I know you and Deanne were, because we talked yesterday, and I'm glad that Gina's here when I need the help.
Well, you are a fixture on the program, and I mentioned it at Lunch Bunch last week, and everybody was very, very concerned. So doggone it, stay healthy, or we're going to come over there like the parents used to say, and we're going to kick you in the posterior.
I will definitely do that, and I understood that it was your birthday last week or this weekend, and it was kind of upsetting when I found that out, and I wanted to be able to be there, but sadly I couldn't, and so I just want to wish you a happy belated birthday, and I hope that you had a fun time, and you're just getting younger by the years. So
you have you're trying to get a whole lot of something from us, because man, I'm getting younger. You'd better look at me the next time I show up, because man, I don't see it, my friend. Hey, God bless you, Wheels. We wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Sir, I'll see you next time at lunch.
All right, I hope so. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. And if you're going hunting and you haven't unrolled that old dirty sleeping bag from last year, oh, my. You roll that dude out in the tent with somebody hunting this fall, they're going to run outside and sleep in a tree. Holy smokes, better get it cleaned. Stop into Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They can take care of it for you, along with all your winter coats. Get them clean now. Gonna get chilly. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. And I also want to say thank you very much to SafeLink Internet. They have really extended their hours of technical support, increased the numbers of their people and everything, and they are wonderful, fast, and very reliable. And believe me, you better call them today and get on their program. SafeLink Internet at 677-8000. Tell them Zeb sent you the call, 677-8000. And they've got over 10,000 customers in this area, and they want to help you. SafeLink Internet. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, did you see the video and hear the audio of what Bill Clinton just recently said? Yeah, I was really surprised that Bill would come out and say something like this during the running of the election, or the running of the campaign. He came out and really slammed Obamacare. And I don't mean he just kind of gave it a once-over. I mean he gave it a drubbing. And he said he absolutely thought it was the craziest system ever. Your premiums are doubled, and coverage is cut in half. If that wasn't a knife right to the heart of Obama, I don't know what was. And really, when you stop and think about this whole thing with the Obamas and the Clintons, I don't care what any of the Democrats say. I don't care what anybody says. They don't like each other. They never have. And Bubba and Hillary have had a lot of disdain for Barack and Michelle. And, oh, yeah, they appear on stage. Great actors. They should win an Emmy or an Academy Award. And they huggy and kissy and everything, and it's not the way it is. The Clintons and the Obamas truly do not like each other. And Obama has tried as hard as he could. Now, these are facts, and there's written information to prove this. Ed Klein has been on my program many, many times, along with some of the writers with the Daily Caller, et cetera, that have followed Hillary and the Obamas, et cetera, all of which have been on my show. And Ed Klein was on the air again this morning, and boy, he was just telling it flat out that Obama tried as hard as he could to derail Hillary's initial road to the White House. And when he knew that he couldn't get it done, he thought maybe I'd better side with her to keep the Democrats in power, but it's really been a real itch for him because he can't scratch it. He does not like her, does not want her in there. And one of the reasons is he does not want the Clinton machine. The Clinton machine to come in and possibly overshadow him by a bunch for the next 4 years. Caller, good morning. You're on the air, but I'm going to ask you a big favor. Can you wait just 60 seconds? I'll be right with you. Stand by. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-0459. They're open at 7:30 in the morning till 5 at night, Monday through Friday. Yeah. 36 degrees at my place this morning, and the old furnace is ready to go to work. You better believe it when your toesies hit the floor. Whoa, it's a little chilly. Well, I'll tell you what, get all your furnace filters and get your furnace checked. Everything, they can handle it to provide you with warm winters at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. You be sure and stop in or give them a call, 678-0459. And don't forget, too, Denny's Restaurant. That's the home of our lunch bunch at 611 Overland in Burley. And they've got another location at 291 Pole Line in Twin Falls. Delicious food. Oh, my goodness. You look at that menu, all the great choices, breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime, all the time at America's Diner. Thomas and Terry, the whole crew, they are just wonderful people. They really take care of you at Denny's Restaurant. 611 Overland in Burley. Thank you for your patience, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
This is a little thought about our millennials who are really looking forward to Hillary coming into this kind of taking over the presidency. But there's something they don't realize is going to happen. She wants to import millions of these foreigners into this country, and these foreigners will be getting all the benefits that these millennials think that they'll be getting.
Yeah.
Because there won't be nothing left over for the American people when these people get through sucking up our welfare and food stamps and the rest of it.
And Social Security. And Social Security, Tony. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tony, you're 100% right on what you said. They're not putting anything into the system. They're not putting anything into the system. We've rolled out the welcome mat, health care, education, housing, and dipping into Social Security. And I'll tell you what, these kids ought to just wake up, smell the coffee, because this is not going to bode well for them in the next 25 to 30 years.
I see it happening right here in Twin Falls when I go to our markets. People are pulling out that Idaho food stamp card and they're driving away in brand new vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Tony, I'm as concerned as you are. I just don't understand why more people are saying, wait a minute. We're broke. We're teetering on the edge of a cliff economically. Our reform systems, healthcare reform systems, have not worked. We've got leeches in the system that need to be weeded out. We're not doing that. We're bringing in, like you said, Hillary wants to, if she becomes president, bring in literally hundreds of thousands more, close to 1 million more. The complexion of our whole country changing with a gimme welfare system. I'm scared, Tony.
Well, it is. The problem with the American people is they haven't been hurt enough yet.
They still got this Idaho deal, or not Idaho, but this idea that it can't happen here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is happening right under their nose.
Absolutely. Hey, God's blessings to you and Mary. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate it. Thank you. You know, he's right. And I was listening very closely to Ed Klein this morning in an interview, and he's written a brand new book, and I'm going to try to get him back on this program. You know, sometimes these folks are a little hard to reach. Like, I'm still working on Dinesh D'Souza, trying to get a date when he's not flying here or doing that or whatever. It's been a little tough. But he said that Hillary's health, he's really concerned about Hillary's health, and he named some of the problems that he has put in that book, especially with her heart. And the blood flow, the vein problems, the possible having a problem with blood clots, all of this thing, and it's a little bit more than spooky. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but your calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Barry Equipment and Rental. Man, I'm telling you, we've had them on the program for a long time, and talking about 3 locations, South Lincoln in Jerome, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They have the equipment to get the job done right. That's it, plain and simple. And not only do they have the equipment to get the job done right, they've got a repair shop at the Burley location, newly remodeled to better serve you. They can fix anything from small engines all the way up to the big dudes, the heavy equipment. You be sure and get a hold of them today. And don't forget all the equipment rentals and the retail equipment sales. Yep, they have the equipment to get the job done right. Barry Equipment and Rental in Jerome, Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, also want to mention them. Oh, you know what happened yesterday? I had to cancel yesterday's appointment because big dumb me, I didn't look at my day planner, and I had to be 2 different places 45 miles apart at the same time. Not easy. Anyway, I'm going back day after tomorrow for another great regimen of exercises at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping me get back to being me, and they can do the same for you. Call for an appointment today, 678-1191. Nick Greenwell and all the physical therapists serving you at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. I appreciate your patience, caller. Go ahead, please.
Well, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
Well, like Tony was mentioning, he said that there's some people that think that, oh, this can't happen here. You know, we're isolated. They're not going to send it. It can't happen here. Oh, it's already happened here. That little girl in Twin, and then that other woman that was raped. Yeah, it's already happened here. And it's going to happen even more if they bring in even more of these low-life refugees that are, want to do a jihad on us.
Let me ask you a question, and I want to be really fair about this. Do you feel that it's fair to lump all of them together and categorize all of them together in that statement that you just made?
Well, not all of them are bad. There are a lot of good people who are Islamic, but there are those that they just want to do us harm. They have been corrupted by this radicalism of their own religion. And, it's going to happen again. That's all I can say.
Well, let me ask you this question then, real quick answer on this. I agree with what you said that time. I mean, as far as saying, yeah, there are some good people, but here's the concern I have. It's not necessarily just the jihadists or the possible danger. It's also the money and the expense. You cannot, as a country, keep absorbing all the world's people coming in at the taxpayer's expense and expect a nation to remain solvent.
Yes, that is part of this Cloward and Piven type tactic to bankrupt the country so that we'll fall back into third worldism. we won't be able to maintain our standard of living that we've come to,
right,
to appreciate.
Right. No, I agree with your comments. I'm very concerned. I do not see us, the United States, in the next 5 years with a tidal wave of people coming in from all over, open borders, illegal immigration, illegal aliens coming in, people trying to find jobs, people trying to eat, people trying to find housing. We could be looking at a total demise of the United States.
Yes, we could. And the thing that I'm looking at, I'm getting up there where in a few years, I'm going to be retiring, and hopefully that Social Security be there, for part of my retirement. And the thing with this bankrupting the country and bringing in all these men, the only way to put a stop to this is to change parties, to elect Donald Trump.
Well, I don't...
You'll stop this influx.
Yeah. I appreciate your call and your comments. I got to run and do a break quick, but I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more in a few minutes. Thank you very, very much.
See you later, Zed.
God bless. Thank you. Nice man right there. We just can't keep doing this. And I know there are those that live here in this area that have condemned me and have called me a hate monger and a bigot and antisocial and everything. Wait a minute. No. For those that know me, my wife, etc., those things are the furthest thing from the truth, and we'll try to help anybody and everybody if we can. But you know what? You reach a point where you can't. There's no way you can help everyone. There's no way you can just open the doors and say, y'all come on in. Here's free food, here's free housing, here is free education, and go ahead, dip into our Social Security, hurt our seniors, hurt our elderly, after they've worked so hard to help this great United States. That's where we're at right now, and we cannot keep pouring out of a pitcher that's running on E right now called the milk of human kindness. Can't do it, nor should we. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got a nice birthday card from her, too, and that's the lovely Dr. Christine Pickup. Thank you over at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. This is a lovely lady that knows so much about sound. Every time I visit with her, I learn more about sound and hearing and what to do. I mean, man, she knows it all. Whether you might have hearing affected by your heart or your kidney health or maybe diabetes, or maybe it might even be related to the medications you're taking. It could be related to depression. There's all kinds of problems that she can address and help you with your hearing. At Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, right across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room. The number to call, 312-0957, for a hearing screening today. Okay, take care of that. Also, real quick, once again, we want to remind you about Lennox. I guarantee you that Ramsey Heating and Electric is offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems, gas furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, whatever. Call 678-0459 and learn how Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox can save you money. Another point that needs to be brought up here, and, I wonder about how credible. The guy's a runaway crook. The guy did some illegalities that everybody's after him, and they're condemning him, and he says that he's living in fear for his life, and that's Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. Well, he had admitted that he was going to send out to the public, the world, documents that would absolutely blow the Hillary campaign out of the water. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be today. It doesn't look like it's going to be tomorrow. And he said in a recent news release that he is going to be releasing a document or documents every week for the next 10 weeks. Well, we only got about 4 weeks till the election. So I'm wondering what's going to happen. But what was really concerning about this Julian Assange and WikiLeaks is a comment that was made by Hillary in regards to him and the leak documents, when she said, and I'm paraphrasing, that why don't we just go drone him? Ooh, that's a little bit scary. Even if it was a jestful remark, why don't we go drone him? The power of the political campaigns and the power of political families over the years, whether it was the Kennedys, whether it was the Bushes, or the Hillary and Bill machine. There have been a lot of stories, and there have been a lot of kind of whispers about how serious and dangerous the Clinton family really is and people associated with them. And for her to make a comment like, why don't we just go drone him, that's a little spooky, is it not? 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Hey, I was looking through the paper this morning, and there was a picture of the new associate veterinarian, Dr. Liz Schrepfer, over at Ark Animal Hospital, sitting there with Dr. Bill Fulcher. Well, congratulations, and it was nice to have that information in the paper. You better believe these folks are good folks over at Ark Animal Hospital. You be sure and contact them today. Really, really good folks, and we're proud to have them on the program here this morning, and we say thank you very much. I'm stumbling here because I lost their ad on the floor. They're located at 750 21st Street in Heyburn, and they have warm hearts for cold noses. That's right, they've been voted Minnecache's best veterinary hospital for multiple years. It's a mixed animal practice, meaning big or small, they love them all, at Ark Animal Hospital in Heyburn. There you go. All right, calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The vice presidential debate is tonight, the only one that Tim Kaine of the Democratic Party and Mike Pence, pardon me, I put an S in there, shouldn't have, from the Republicans are going to have. It's going to take place at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia, and it will start at our time, Mountain Time, 7 p.m. tonight. And you kind of wonder about how big a deal it's going to be. You wonder how it's going to be received by the general public. You wonder how many millions, are going to leave watching the first game of the baseball playoffs to watch the VPs. And you wonder what's going to be said and done. And you kind of wonder if Pence is going to try to make amends or possible excuses for Trump, and the same can be said of Tim Kaine. You kind of wonder how he's going to have to get a big broom and cover up all the faux pas and the Clinton Foundation and Benghazi and Libya and the emails and everything else, how he's going to do that. And I think, honestly, that Mike Pence, I knew I was going to do that. Mike Pence will be an attack dog tonight against Tim Kaine and not have that kind of laid-back Indiana attitude that he normally has. I talked to Dave Bego about this one time, and he said that that's a problem with Mike Pence, is that he sometimes doesn't really step up, stick his chin out, and say, let's go. And they think tonight he's going to step up, stick his chin out, and say to Tim Kaine, let's go. It's going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it because I want to know the personality, and I really want to know the ability of the number two man, especially in the case if, God forbid, Hillary wins the election. With her bad health, and quite frankly, with all her illegalities that might come back and all of a sudden, whoop, she's out of the Oval Office. I want to know what kind of capabilities, or not, that Kane has. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've got to ask you this. What is the deal? What is the deal with all the clown scares? I am not making this up. There's supposedly, and it was in the paper this morning, the Times News, that 2 schools here in Magic Valley are boosting security after a clown threat. Now, you can't make this kind of thing up. The O'Leary Middle School in Twin and the Lighthouse Christian School in Twin Falls have found a possible connection between a scary clown threat. Now, I did some research thanks to my lovely wife, and we started going through some various stories that are on the internet that can be proven and verified. And I noticed that there was also a story in the Times News a couple of days ago, about creepy clowns reach Magic Valley. And they had a story about a man dressed as a clown reportedly chased people on the South Idaho Street in Wendell. And then a note was received at Jerome High School that said the clown is coming to your school. And I have seen pictures, and there was a video on television this morning about a clown, a morbid-looking clown, chasing some young people that were out in the woods. And then I read that there have been 2 arrests, and schools have been closed in the Cincinnati, Ohio area because of reported threats involving clowns against students trying to lure the students into wooded areas. So, my question to you, what in the heck is going on? Anybody out there that has had a report, or anybody that knows of a report, or anybody that has had a family that has been maybe a student within a school that has been threatened by these clowns, call me. I'd like to know more about this. And I have no idea. I was reading how this thing got started, and they said that creepy clowns kind of started in late August in rural South Carolina. Actually, I'd heard about these creeps a little bit before that. And they said that these clowns in South Carolina were trying to lure kids into the woods. Good heavens. And allegedly, back there in South Carolina, some of the clowns interacted with the kids, offering them money to follow them into the woods. What in the world is going on? You know, clowns, when I was growing up, it was part of the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, or you'd have a clown come to your home for a birthday party or whatever. Now, it's so sinister, and the way that their faces are painted and everything, what really is going on? It's South Carolina, it's in New Jersey, it's in New York, it's in Florida, it's in Alabama, Kentucky, even here in southern Idaho. Please call me, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. This is crazy. While I'm waiting for your call, I also want to remind you about the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function coming up on October 27th. It's going to be frightfully wonderful, so we certainly hope that you'll be a part of it. A big, huge, ghoulishly delicious breakfast on the 27th, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, going until 10. They're going to be selling creep candy. That is fantastic for Halloween. You got to get some of that. And T-shirts for $15. I'm going to be doing a remote broadcast over there that morning from 8 to 11. Oh, come on. It's going to be fun. The Big Junction Pumpkin Function on October 27th, and all the net proceeds go to the Meals on Wheels. All right, it's your turn. Come on, don't quit me now. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. something else that bothers me a little bit, and it coincides with what's happening in bringing in to the United States all of the refugees. Now listen to what Obama's White House wants to do. And a lot of you think it might be just as bland as vanilla. Nothing can happen. But read between the lines here a little bit. The White House wants to add a new racial category. Listen carefully. This was an itty-bitty story in the USA Today. Just really a small one, hidden on about page 5 or 6. It said, the White House is putting forward a proposal to add a new racial category for people from the Middle East and North Africa under what would be the biggest realignment of federal racial definitions in decades. Now, if approved, the new designation could appear on census forms in 2020 and could have, here's the part you want to think about, could have far-reaching implications for racial identity, and anti-discrimination laws and health research. Right there when I read racial identity and anti-discrimination laws, you can't say a word about them. If you do, you may be locked up. Our First Amendment is under a big threat with this new racial category. What are your thoughts? Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Come on, get out of bed and give me a call. Hurry. While I'm waiting for your call, I'm going to go ahead and have the weather forecast. It's very important right now because the urgent cares are providing a special for you tomorrow on October 5th. They're having a flu shot special for $15 at all the clinics. Riverview Urgent Care at 382 North Overland and Burley, Twin Falls Urgent Care, 2392 Addison Avenue East in Twin Falls, and Jerome Urgent Care at 133 West Avenue A in Jerome. Only $15 tomorrow at all of the clinics. Minor emergencies, major care. Please stop in and see them today or tomorrow. They can help you. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like it's still going to be on the breezy side for today. Here is what your weather looks like. Winds out of the southwest right around 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies. Looking at a high of 54 for today. Tonight, low of 37. Tomorrow, exactly the same as today. Partly cloudy skies, still slightly breezy. High of 54 with an overnight low of 35. Partly cloudy and 56 for Thursday. And for Friday and Saturday, sunny skies. Highs are going to be in the low to mid-60s. Still might want to keep those veggies covered up in the evening hours as our temperatures are getting close to the freezing point. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 41. That is your weather for Zebeth Duran.
I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. And once again, to Kyle James and all of his staff, we appreciate the job they do. Go to urgentcareofidaho.com. Check them out. Riverview Urgent Care in Burley, Twin Falls Urgent Care, Twin Falls, Jerome Urgent Care in Jerome. Tomorrow, flu shots only $15 at all the locations. Wow. I mean, did everybody sleep in this morning? My goodness sakes. Let's get a call in here. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You know, why don't we get the racial thing taken care of that we've already got without creating a new one?
Why have standards to define more racism? Why do we need this?
We don't. We don't need it. You know, if we just look at the Bible and your scriptures and everything, you know, I found many, many times that this is the answer to our questions, is in the scriptures.
Absolutely.
And this is written, you know, many, many years ago, but yet it still applies to us.
You know what I see? Keith, here is what I see. And you can call me way out there in La La Land or whatever, but when you have far-reaching implications for racial identity and then anti-discrimination laws being rewritten, Keith, that means that if you, Nancy, me, Deanne, anybody says anything about this new racial category, oh yeah, with the refugees coming in, etc., oh, we could be in violation of law and the new statutes they want to present to us, that would be a denigration to our Constitution and our First Amendment.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The First Amendment it's just a piece of paper right now, because we're going to put all these other amendments on it. It will have no significance in the end.
And that's exactly the fear right now, Keith, of the open seat on the Supreme Court and the absolute shivers down my back knowing that there is a possibility that Hillary will win this election, and then she'll appoint a very liberal judge to take over that seat, and there are two others that are looming on the horizon that may retire from the court, and then more filling of very, very liberal judges. Oh, Keith, we've got a lot to worry about.
Yeah, when it's even suggested that somebody like Loretta Lynch for the Supreme Court, that really makes me shudder. And I think this is a tool that the Republicans could use there, because this would be definitely a possibility if Hillary wins.
Yeah. I'm very worried about this election. I'm very worried about the ramifications that will linger for a long time after this election, and about what's going to happen on the Supreme Court, what's going to happen with our First and Second Amendment. I'm very concerned.
You know, my wife was reminding me that she heard it, and I don't know where, and this is just hearsay, I guess, that they found a whole bunch of already documented or already had Hillary's name in the winners column in a warehouse somewhere, thousands of ballots with marks with her name on it.
Yeah, but Keith, I can't deal in speculation, and I won't. I mean, and I won't deal in anything but facts until it's absolutely hard and fast. I don't believe in it.
But she heard it somewhere.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a travesty for? Oh my goodness! You know, already we're wondering, does our vote really count?
Yeah, I agree with that part of it.
Worry about that because of the corruption and everything.
Well, there's been corruption in almost every election ever since we started having elections in this country. But boy, I'm not going to say or speculate or even lead somebody to think that that was said on my program and it's a truism, because it's not. We don't know that to be fact, so I'm not even going to repeat it. But boy, I'll put the hammer down if I find out there's any substance to it. Keith, thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Have a good day.
Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've got enough truisms, absolute truths to worry about right now without anything that's, we think or this might be. That's why I only deal in exactly the facts. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I really am surprised that we didn't have some of the parents call in about that clown deal, because that is chilling. That really is a chilling story as to why these people, whoever they are, whether they're teenagers, whether they're middle-aged, dressing up as very insidious-looking, dangerous clowns and hiding behind trees, stepping out, scaring people, or sending messages to schools like the clown is coming to your school. Why? And for what purpose of danger? And boy, all parents, I know if I heard that kind of a threat and it was going on like locally at the Lighthouse Christian School in Twin or O'Leary or over in Jerome High School or whatever, I tell you what, there'd be a whole bunch of pick-em-up trucks driving around the area trying to find those clowns. and then we'd provide them a ride right to the sheriff's office. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away. Ramsey Heating and Electric offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems, gas furnaces, air conditioners, and heat pumps. You and your family will enjoy the comfort thanks to Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
What'd you do to Wheels? He sounds kind of grouchy this morning.
No. Wheels is not grouchy. Don't even make that insinuation. The young man has been going through a lot health-wise, and God bless him. He's doing his best to do his job over there, and I stand in support of him.
Yeah, bless him. I got a question for you. If you think our nation's capital was in Kansas City or someplace here in the Midwest, do you think we'd already revolted and kicked them out of office, all of those lazy bums back there, instead of being tucked away in the East Coast?
I have never thought of the capital of the United States moving or relocating to a centrist location of our country, be it Iowa or Kansas or whatever. I really don't have a response to that.
Well, I don't mean moving it, but I mean like if it was already there, because it seems like nobody can get to Washington, D.C. to even have a protest or anything because it's so far away, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So are you advocating a change of location of our nation's capital?
No, I was just wanting your opinion if it had been in the first place in the middle of the United States, if things would be different instead of being tucked away on the sea coast over there where, you know, you can't even... You got to drive 3,000 miles to even join a protest or something.
Well, keep in mind that our original locations for capitals, be it Washington, D.C. or Baltimore, etc., they were there because our populace and our expansion of Go West, young man, hadn't yet really occurred to the point where you could ever establish a capital. And so I think that logistically, where it is where it should stay because of, I just don't see moving the capital of the United States of America.
Okay, I was just kind of curious.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Never thought about that. Never thought about that. To maybe put the capital in the heartland of America, in the basic central portion of our United States for more input, more travel, more visibility, more visitation. Kind of an interesting thought. What are your thoughts? Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Actually, word is on the Potomac right now. Might not be such a bad deal because I'd like to take a lot of these congressmen, senators, etc., and just dip them in the Potomac River. I mean, holy smokes. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget the big fall tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You know, you drive in there, and I don't care if you're in a car, a pickup, or an SUV, whatever, and you say, you know what, I need new tires. Well, they'll come out and they'll ask you about how much driving you do and where you go and everything, off-road, on-road, all this kind of thing. And they've got a tire to fit every single driving need, whether it again for your car, pickup, or SUV. And these folks really know tires with all the different tread designs, everything else, and they can help you. So right now, this big fall tire sale going on, you stop in and see them today. 7 locations serving you. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family over in Paul, great folks, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. Nobody does it better. Nobody does it better than your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Great service, friendly folks serving you. Stop in and see them today. Let's see what else have we got here. Next hour, we have had a lot of calls. People are wondering about the amendment for HJR 5. And I'm going to have the man that knows all about HJR 5, and that's Fred Wood. Representative Fred Wood's going to get on the air. We're going to talk to him. And then at 9:30, Steve Beeman is going to be here, and we're going to talk about Hillary and Trump and his taxes and the money going into her foundation, all of this kind of thing. Dr. History at 10:06, and then Norm Simanko is going to be on the program at 10:30 this morning from the Idaho Water Users Association, telling us exactly how dangerous the waters of the United States with the EPA really is. So don't miss that. Right now, we have this good word, and then Wheels is going to take us up to the 9 o'clock news. Go ahead, Wheels. Oh, my. Good morning. Look at that blue sky outside this morning. Wonderful, wonderful day on a Tuesday, already October 4th. Good morning. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho,
Always at your disposal, and don't forget they've got dumpsters in all the different sizes. You can have them bring them out. You can fill them up, which I could with this office, and then they'll come and get them. I mean, they are always at your disposal. Check out their out service where they come and pick up your garbage weekly, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, absolutely the best. Also want to remind you about Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. With the home comfort systems. Don't forget they're offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems. You can find out more. All you have to do is call them at 678-0459 and learn how Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox can save you money. On our program every day, we have basically the best of advertisers and sponsors, and I really mean that. And I'd also like to remind you about our friends at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, with our dear friend Joel Heward, his family, and his staff, always there serving you. And if there's the passing of a loved one, they can travel to the rural towns and the churches to help you with all the arrangements. And always remember, upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. They are really, really concerned about you and your family, and they treat every life as a life that is worth remembering. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. I'm on the air right now with a man that I call my friend, and I am proud of that because he is a great legislator that has done a lot of good things in our legislative sessions, and that's Representative Fred Wood. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Deb, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, but I, along with a lot of voters, I think people are concerned. They don't understand. I've had a lot of questions and calls come in here to my office about the Idaho Constitutional Amendment, HJR 5. Really, what is it?
Well, House Joint Resolution 5, or HJR 5, I think the best way to explain it is let's go back and take 1 minute and review how our government is supposed to work from the inception of the country, both the federal and the state government. If everyone remembers correctly, the government is broken into 3 parts or 3 branches. The legislative branch, which is the branch closest to the people and the branch that is elected by the people. The executive branch, which is the governor and the state agencies, and the judicial branch. Now, the legislative branch is the branch that is charged constitutionally with making the laws, the rules, and the regulations of which we govern ourselves and under which we lead our lives every day, conduct business, commerce, etc., etc. The executive branch is supposed to take those laws and implement them and carry them out within the intent of the legislation, within the intent, the legislative intent of laws, rules, and regulations. The judicial branch is charged with judging each of those laws, rules, and regulations within a constitutional standard. So if somebody complains that a law is unconstitutional, it's the courts that reviews it and says it's either constitutional or unconstitutional. That's the way it's supposed to work. So how does it go awry? Well, with respect to the legislative branch, it typically goes awry, Zeb, because the legislative branch just fails to perform. And a classic example of that I'm sure all of our listeners can appreciate is Congress today. Notwithstanding Idaho's 4 federal delegation, Congress is a miserable failure. It hasn't done anything. All it does is fight. There's gridlock. It can't even pass budgets on an annual basis. How does the executive branch go awry? Well, 2 ways. One, through executive orders. And everybody understands what's been happening with executive orders under President Obama and, unfortunately, presidents prior to him. And number 2 is the Administrative Procedures Act and rulemaking authority, whereby the executive branch just disregards the law that was passed and the intent of the law that was passed and goes and makes a rule that is completely contrary to the legislation that authorized the rulemaking. And the way that the judicial system goes awry is activist judges, which we all know about. Now, Idaho is blessed with a very good, conservative Idaho State Supreme Court. So how does HJR 5 is intended to protect the normal process of how we govern ourselves in 2 ways. Number 1, it's to make sure that whenever the legislature authorizes the executive branch to promulgate a rule, and a rule is written, then that rule gets to come back to the legislature, and the legislature is the final arbiter or the final say in whether or not that rule comports with or adheres to the legislative intent. And the second way it protects is against activist judges. The Idaho legislature is authorized to review rules and reject them or approve them on a split decision of the Idaho Supreme Court in 1990 in a case called Meade versus Arnell. And that was a 3-2 decision, Zeb. So I'm not worried about the current Idaho Supreme Court, but in a decade or 2 from now, if the Idaho Supreme Court with activist judges decided that they didn't like what the legislature was doing, and they decided that they wanted a predetermined outcome, they could reverse that, and then the legislature would no longer be the final arbiter of rules. The executive branch would be, or worse yet, the courts. So what the legislature put before the legislature and the legislature approved is a constitutional amendment asking the people to put in the Constitution this protection to make sure that the executive branch cannot usurp the power of the legislature through the administrative rules process or the Administrative Procedures Act and the rules process, and to prevent a future activist court from taking away the legislature's ability to legislate.
Fred, I guess
it's about as simple as that, Zeb.
Yeah, I guess an obvious question that comes up in my mind initially is, why hasn't this been addressed prior to this year?
We did it. The legislature 2 years ago put before the people House Joint Resolution 2, which said and did exactly the same thing. It was written a little differently, and I think it was a little confusing back then. It went down on a 49.6 to 54 point, or to a 50.4 vote of the people, I think. Now, the Magic Valley voted 67% for that constitutional amendment. The legislature felt that this was important enough that we're bringing it back. We've had multiple attorneys, constitutional lawyers, et cetera, look at it. We think that it's better written this time.
Now, a lot of people, Fred, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, a lot of people are saying, oh, no, don't ever mess with our Idaho Constitution. Leave it alone. Once you have an amendment here and an amendment there, you're going to be absolutely weakening the structure of the Constitution. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think this constitutional amendment is necessary because, in my opinion, this is the problem with rulemaking is not a problem that anybody foresaw in 1889 when the Constitution was put into place. This is something that has come up in the last 40 or 50 years. It initially came up in the federal government, and then some states have gone down this road of the executive branch and the courts trying to usurp the power of the legislature. So the problem didn't exist back in 1889 when the founders of Idaho wrote the Idaho Constitution.
You know, you keep referring to rules, and maybe we should be a little bit more explanatory about rules and why they're necessary or not.
Okay, good question, Zeb. Rules are necessary for this reason. The Idaho legislature meets once a year, and hopefully we will never meet for more than 70 or 80 days. But there's a lot that happens between times, and it's necessary to have an ability to make law, if you will, when the legislature is not in session. Here's a perfect example. The Food and Drug Administration and at the federal level and the Board of Pharmacy at the state level maintains a list of prohibited substances that you cannot manufacture, possess, distribute, sell, etc. And they're drugs like heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and all of the synthetic drugs that the criminal elements in our country are continually trying to sell and distribute to make money. Well, unfortunately, they've got a whole bunch of chemical labs that are out there making new drugs every week. And the drugs have to be very specifically listed, or law enforcement doesn't have the ability to regulate them at all. So what happens is we authorize the Board of Pharmacy in the state of Idaho, anytime the state police or the FBI find a new substance, they can immediately get a temporary rule in place through the governor's office to ban, to ban this substance until such time as the legislature comes back next year and then puts it on the prohibited list, called the controlled substance list. So that's why we need rules. And we run into the same thing with the Board of Health and Welfare, DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, whenever there's a spill or various other things. There's a need periodically to make rules or to make some kind of law or regulation until the legislature can get back and deal with that on an annual basis. That's the need for rulemaking.
Let me make a little bit of an analogy here, and if I'm wrong in the structure of this phrase, please correct me, but we, the United States, we're seeing an abuse of that executive power right now with President Obama just absolutely, like you said, with a weak-kneed Congress that's not doing anything, and we've seen his assumption of powers on various subjects. That, in turn, can also be related to a state power with the governor assuming that kind of power, and the legislature is the being, if you will, that could curb that abuse of power. Is that a fair analogy?
To some extent. Now, HJR 5 doesn't get into executive orders. Okay, that is a different issue. That is not being abused in Idaho at all. And I don't know of any governor in the past that has. And I know that Governor Otter watches that fairly closely. He doesn't like to go out in front of the legislature or anything, and we've seen that multiple times. So in Idaho, that isn't an issue at all, and HJR 5 doesn't cover that. Now, I would agree with you. On the federal level, that is abused just unbelievably.
Now, let me ask you this question. Most people, when they go to the polls, and I think you and I, we talked about this the other evening on the telephone. When they go to the polls, people seem to be in so much of a hurry to just kind of make the black mark and then run out, go to lunch or whatever. Do people and can people understand HJR 5 in the wording that's presented?
Well, I've got it sitting right here in front of me, and Zeb, HJR 5 is a single sentence with 3 parts. And I'll read it on the air right now because I've heard 3 people say, well, it's confusing to me. I don't think that it is. I think that it is fairly straightforward. So let me read this, and I'll stop between each part. There's a semicolon between each part in the sentence. The first part, and it says, shall Article 3 of the Constitution of the State of Idaho be amended by the addition of a new Section 29 to provide that the legislature may review any administrative rule to ensure it is consistent with the legislative intent of the statute, that the rule was written to interpret, prescribe, implement, or enforce. That's pretty straightforward.
Right.
That's the first part. What that says is you're going to allow an amendment to the Constitution to make sure that the legislature always has the authority to review a rule. Period. The second part says, and it's semicolon, to provide that, after review, the legislature may approve or reject, in whole or in part, any rule as provided by law. All that says is that, one, so the first part is we may review. We don't have to, but we may review a rule. And number 2, that we can either approve or reject all of the rule or part of the rule.
Right.
Okay? And third, then it goes on to say, semicolon, and to provide that legislative approval or rejection of a rule is not subject to gubernatorial veto under Section 10, Article 4 of the Constitution of the State of Idaho. All that says is that the governor's veto authority does not extend to rules. And if you read Article 10, or Section 10 of Article 4, the plain reading of that, it never mentions a rule. It is specifically a bill, period.
Right.
So I don't think this conflicts at all. It's just to make sure that a governor can't come back in the future and say, well, I interpret Section 10 of Article 4 to mean this.
Right.
Well, it doesn't mean that.
Right.
The plain reading doesn't mean that either. So I don't find this confusing. I don't think most folks will if they actually take the time ahead of time, and probably the voting booth is not the time to do it. You need to do it ahead of time to sit down and just read it. Simple and straightforward from my perspective.
Absolutely. Fred, we have a caller with a question, and caller, I'm going to ask you to keep it condensed because I'm almost out of time. Quickly, go ahead.
Okay, 2 things. I think we started a problem in the judicial system in 1890 when we went from constitutional law to case law there. Also, executive orders are supposed to pertain only to the executive branch of the government. Why are we letting it go the other way?
Fred, go ahead and respond quickly if you would.
Well, first of all, in Idaho, the executive order issue is not being abused and not going anywhere else. The federal system is terribly abused. I'm not part of the federal system. I agree with the caller 110%. He is exactly right. It is being terribly abused. And, of course, the state judiciary doesn't resemble the federal judiciary at all because the state judiciary is elected and the federal judiciary is appointed. And there's a huge difference. So I know you're almost out of time, Zeb. So
I am, but I want to tell you, Fred, I think that we need to review this again in a couple of weeks prior to the election to dispel any rumors or anything else as far as uneducation on this subject, and we'll have you back if you don't mind.
Love to, Zeb, and maybe I'll listen a little more, and maybe we can get some callers to call in if they have any questions.
Very good. Representative Fred Wood, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the program this morning talking about HJR 5, and we'll have another review in a couple of days. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Zeb, thanks so much. Talk to you later.
All right, sir. Dear friend, great legislator, Representative Fred Wood, and great explanation of HJR 5. And I do appreciate his taking the time to come on the program this morning. I've got to pay some bills. Excuse me, and I've got a frog in my throat. Don't forget Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more. And they're located at 459 Overland in Burley. Oh, my goodness sakes, I'm telling you, they've got mattresses. They have got all kinds of mattresses for you for a good night's sleep. And all the bedroom sets, the dining room sets, the entertainment stands, and recliners. Yes, somebody called me the other day and said, did you really buy your recliners at Lee's Furniture? And I said, yes, we did. We went in and tried them on and found just the two that fit Goober and I. I'll tell you what, they are comfortable. Absolutely. You stop in today and see Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley. Really good folks. By the way, too, we want to remind you, as I should have a few minutes ago, as I got to check my list here, don't forget, every morning when we start the program, we have our weather forecast at 8:06, sponsored by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. And it's true, look for that blue door. All your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home at Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Holy cow, we got Steve Beeman coming up in just a few moments. As a matter of fact, talking about taxes and Hillary and Trump. And he did an amazing job the last time he was on the program, and we're looking forward to having him back this next time. Don't forget, too, Let's Ride. You know, just last night, I was talking to some people that they're getting ready to go deer hunting. Oh, yeah. They've got everything all loaded up on their four-wheelers to get in the backcountry and everything. Well, you know, I like to go into the backcountry. I'm not as much of a hunter as some because I forgot to apply for my permit this year. I goofed. Anyway, I like to get in the backcountry, and right now with all the fall colors and everything, oh, my goodness, it's beautiful. Stop over to Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Oh, my. Open Mondays through Saturdays, 9 to 6. And they're having a closeout on all the 2016 four-wheelers and side-by-sides. Now is the time. You get over there so you can enjoy where the fun is sold. Over at Let's Ride. Absolutely great people that really know and understand. You stop over and see them today. I love our four-wheelers. And real quick, I also want to acknowledge the fact that over in that same area, right there on Highway 24, a little bit closer to Rupert, Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Highway 24, right on the highway in Rupert. And they are the best with life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. Call and talk to them. Make an appointment to make sure you, your family, your business, you're protected. They're very accessible and devoted to serving you. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert, 436-4424. Let's go right now to the phone line, and I had this gentleman on the program a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to having him back today, and that's Steve Beeman. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, good morning to you. Thank you once again for having me on. It's such a pleasure.
Well, Steve, I tell you what, you're a straight shooter. I really enjoy your approach on different topics, and I just got to ask you right up front, what do you think is going to happen tonight? Look into your Beeman crystal ball. What do you think is going to happen tonight between Kane and Pence? Do you really think there's going to be a lot of firepower, or is the number 2 selection for VPs, are they just going to be like a couple of lapdogs?
You have been around as long as I have, and the reality is nobody cares. It's just going to be a typical political debate where very few people watch it, fewer people care, and so I think the result of this will be nothing.
Do you think, though, that there may be an opportunity for Mike Pence to go on the attack a little bit for Trump and talk about the taxes, talk about why he's not turning over his papers? What do you think on that subject?
Well, I hope he does, because to be straight up with you, this whole thing about Trump's taxes is a joke. There's absolutely nothing to it. First of all, he's a private citizen. Every small business person in the country has taken loss carry forward. That's a common practice. It's well within the law. And for them to condemn Trump for this is just ridiculous, given the fact that he's earned his money privately. Hillary has been sucking at the trough of the public monies for her whole career.
Okay, but now you're an expert on this. I mean, when it comes to finances, you understand. That's why I'm having you on. You are the entrepreneur, and you know. How would you, if you were Donald Trump, how would you have handled this differently from the get-go on the non-disclosure of the taxation forms so far?
I would simply look at the world and say, you know what, I'm a private citizen. I've earned my money privately. I've built jobs. I've created economic growth. And that's exactly what we need in this country, as opposed to Hillary Clinton, who has spent her life sucking at the trough of the public, has never earned a legitimate wealth-building dime in her life, instead sold American assets on a pay-for-play scheme at the State Department. And so you take your pick. You want the private sector to run our economy or the public sector? It's your call.
But the media, as you well know, you talk about eating at the trough. The media is all at the same water hole. They're going to keep going after Trump to release the taxes. The New York Times, Washington Post, I don't care who it is, CNN, ABC. How does he overcome the attack on the media, from the media to him?
I think first he doesn't take the bait and become defensive. You know, instead of being defensive and backing up on it, he needs to be on the offensive and be proud of what he's done. There isn't a small business, mid-size or large business, that hasn't had problems in one year or another. I mean, my gosh, the New York Times lost a bunch of money last year. This is not an uncommon practice, and he needs to stand up for that and be pro-business and talk about the benefits of creating a private economy to the nation.
Okay, so now we saw the first debate. You were on the air with me prior to that. I want to have your exact thoughts about who won, who lost, where they need to shine up their shoes a little bit. Tell me about it.
Oh, I was frustrated with Trump. Now, this is an interesting dichotomy, by the way. I thought Trump dropped the ball. I thought he could have gone at Hillary on factual policy, substantive issues, and he didn't. But what's interesting is he once again hit a nerve in the American people with his rawness. And, you know, going back to the primary experience where he drew voters out who had never voted before, it looks like he drew people into the debate. Coming out of it, they're Trump supporters who would never even have gone to those debates before. But I really wish he had had a more direct approach with Hillary, not on the defensive, but the offensive, to talk about the tax issue, talk about women's rights issues. You know, yes, Donald Trump says stupid things. You know it, I know it, I think he knows it. He sticks his foot in his mouth. He's not a professional politician, but his actions speak louder than his words. Where on Hillary, it's the exact opposite. Her actions have always been questionable. She was fired from the Watergate Committee for being dishonest. I believe she's been disbarred. I mean, there's so much cannon fodder for him to fillet her. She is the worst candidate on the Democratic side in the history of that party. Now, you could argue Trump is the worst, too. But policy-wise, it's so distinct between more government, more stimulus out of the government, and more free market on his side. I don't see how he loses that debate.
You had written a piece, to which I have it right here in my hand, one of the best I've read in a long time, and the headline was, "Why I Wish I Had Debated Hillary Clinton." And tell us a little bit about writing that piece, and really, would you have liked to have stood at the podium and just really drilled her on her stands regarding all the economics, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Libya, everything? Tell me about that.
Well, my first response is, you bet I would have loved to stand at that podium. But the genesis of that simply was watching the debate and my frustration at letting her off the hook on major issues. There are serious substantive things that Hillary Clinton has done that show a lack of judgment, a lack of integrity, a lack of honesty, and for that not to come out with respect to, the Middle East or with respect to the economy. When she comes out and talks about more government stimulus, in the last 8 years, we've spent $9 to $10 trillion in government stimulus. In return for that, we got $3 trillion in growth. You tell me, is that good growth? We're suffering from 2% growth rates in America. The IMF just downgraded global growth because of the United States, and it's because of the overregulated, overtaxed economy. Where would you rather go the next 8 years? More of that, so we had another $10 trillion in debt with another $3 trillion in growth, or go back to what worked in the 20s, the 60s, and the 80s, cut taxes, cut regulation, get growth back up to 8%, and to change the tax law to repatriate the company's capital that sits overseas.
You break this all down, and you had this piece, and you broke it into like 6 different parts. Basically, our economy, I thought that Donald Trump the other night, he didn't show the junkyard dog attitude that he should have. Is it because he's afraid of being called a genderist to the point where he's attacking a poor little old woman? What are your thoughts on that?
I do think that his advisors were beating him up by showing a kinder, gentler Donald that night. I think he was biting his tongue because it's his first national debate of this type, and I think he was not on his game. He did come out afterwards and say, the Mr. Nice Guy thing is gone and past. Next time I won't be so nice. So we'll have to see. But as I outlined in that article, Zeb, there's so much facts against Hillary Clinton. Why he can't bring it up, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this, Steve, because a lot of people aren't even talking about this. But before the election, before the nomination, before, they were friends. The Clintons and the Trumps were friends, and there's a lot of pictures at different social events, etc. Is this all a false Western Front building, or is it really an animosity that's building? Tell us about what you think about the honest and true personalities between Trump and the Clintons.
You bring up, I think, what is a very interesting point. I have met Donald Trump a couple of times. I wouldn't say I know him well, but I've met him, and he is certainly a man of enormous ego, enormous self-confidence, and enormous arrogance, thinking that he can accomplish anything. I think what's happened is he originally got in this thinking he would be a shoo-in, and it surprised him a bit, similarly with Hillary, so that they've both gotten their goads up, and they're fighting now for the battle of their lives, and it is creating a real animosity between them.
Okay, but where does the American public come out on this? Drawing the short straw with either candidate, or does honestly Trump have policies and an adherence to those policies that would make, like he said, America great again?
I guess where I come down on that is to say that the economic policies of Trump clearly are superior to that of Clinton. There's no question. The issue to me comes down to the constitutional standards of either candidate. Neither of them has respect for the Constitution of these United States. Neither of them has come out in a stand to say we're going to pare back the egregious violations of the First through 10th Amendments that have gone on the last 20 years. And I think that's a concern where the American people do get the short end of the stick. But given a debate or a battle between these two candidates, at least with Trump, we get a decent economic chance.
Does Trump have, in your opinion, Steve, the economic background or people working with him and for him that have the economic backgrounds to really understand a good, solid, comprehensive tax plan that would be a benefit for this country? Hillary's response on numerous occasions the other night in the debate, like talking about free college, etc., that offends me. I paid for mine. I worked 3 jobs to get through school, and when she's talking about free college tuition, I'm offended. But what about other Americans? Do they look at this as kind of an offense, what they had to pay for?
Well, I think you bring up a cultural shift that's happened in our nation in the last 15 years. We now have a nation that, at its culture, thinks government can provide its lifestyle benefits. It's wrong. It won't work. But I think people are naively buying into this idea that government can do this. That's why you have the Bernie Sanders supporters. With respect to your question about Trump's ability to pull together a team, the original economic plan that he released at the Economic Club of Detroit many months ago was built by a brain trust of the who's who of the economic community. He did for that program what he did in his companies. He hired the best and the brightest. He said, go build me an economic plan that works, and they did. So I do have faith in his ability to draw in the talent to bring the economy back from its doldrums.
You wrote about the Black Lives Matter in your piece, and my feelings about Black Lives Matter, it's one of the most animosity-filled groups that we've had in this country for a long time. It's one of the most segregated groups in our society. And I saw a video the other day of a white man holding up a sign out in front of a predominantly white neighborhood that said Black Lives Matter. Nobody bothered him. Everything was okay. Then he took a sign that said All Lives Matter into a predominantly black area, and he got the heck beat out of him. This group scares me. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are simply this. What's happened here is the politicians, and Barack Obama, you love him or hate him, but he has been part of this separating Americans by group. What we have done is spent 50 years putting people into poverty, telling them they're victims of an unfair system, telling them they need the government to survive. The outcome of that is 50 to 60 people a week shot in the city of Chicago as a direct response to the Great Society programs, and this race baiting that's done through the political class to separate and divide and conquer the populace is causing our nation to fracture at the core. We should not be concerned with any specific group's life. It is an American life taken erroneously that we should care about. And yes, there are cops who erroneously shoot black people. Yes, but the numbers say they also shoot white people. And by the way, cops get shot. It's that cultural breakdown that we're beginning to see because of an entitlement-based victimhood in this country that's causing these problems, and that's where we need to go.
Okay, now the next debate coming up on Sunday night. Give me your thoughts as to what might happen. Look again into that crystal ball. What does Trump have to do, if it's not already too late, to sway more percentage points in the polls?
I am hoping that what Trump does is goes on the offensive this time and doesn't lay down to Hillary Clinton, but rather goes strongly on the offensive.
When you say that, how can he do it in the Trump fashion and not be called a sexist and, quite frankly, rude?
I think he sticks to the facts, and that's where I get frustrated. The facts are in his favor. Stick to the facts. Lay them out clearly. The American...
Somebody's trying to dial evidently on that phone line. I hope they don't do that again. Go ahead, Steve, please.
Oh, I was going to say the facts are in his favor, and if he just sticks to the facts, he will not be considered rude. He'll be considered factual. And again, it's overwhelming in his favor. So I wish he would just take advantage of the existing facts, lay them out clearly, and the Hillary Clinton's campaign will be done.
Julian Assange with WikiLeaks has threatened to come out with information, Steve, that might change the complexion of this entire election. Do you think this is all hype, or is there some truth base to this?
I think there's truth to it. He has been true to his person when he says he has information. Interestingly, rather than doing an outdoor public ceremony with this, he's elected to do it in the he is because he's afraid for his life.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that you're on the air. Evidently a little bit of a phone problem this morning. But Steve Beeman, as we draw closer, I'm going to have you back on this show again for another update and also talk about the competitive debates. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to come on our program this morning.
Well, I thank you for having me, and I do apologize. I'm on a cell phone as opposed to my normal studio phone because I'm out and about doing things for people who need help.
All right, sir. Veteran of the financial industry, Steve Beeman. God bless you, sir, and I'll look forward to your return. Thank you so much.
And Godspeed to you, my friend.
All right, sir. Very good insight. I don't know where the dial tone and people dialing without looking to see if a phone is busy or not, but I wish they'd look first before they start having a happy trail across the buttons. Very interesting man, CEO and financial expert Steve Beeman, and we will, in the next couple of weeks leading up close to the election, have him back on the air for his evaluation as to where Trump really is and how bad Hillary is doing, I hope. We got to get a weather forecast on here right now, and then we'll take some of your calls and questions. Please give me a jingle on the landline. And right now, the weather is brought to you by Pope Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, and Company CPAs. You know, I like the personality over there. I like the people, and I like what they do, and they're so efficient as CPAs and all the services they provide, as they have provided to the Mini-Cassia area for well over 50 years. Tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, bookkeeping services. Just please get a hold of them and find out how they can assist you. Pope Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, and Company with Curtis Pope, Todd Phillips, Rob Oaks, Mitch Goodwin, and Lyden Crane. All serving you with offices in Burley and Rupert. And we'll have more about that in just a moment. But right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like it's still going to be on the breezy side for today. Here is what your weather looks like. Winds out of the southwest right around 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies. Looking at a high of 54 for today. Tonight low of 37. Tomorrow exactly the same as today. Partly cloudy skies. Still slightly breezy. High of 54 with an overnight low of 35. Partly cloudy and 56 for Thursday and for Friday and Saturday. Sunny skies. Highs are going to be in the low to mid 60s. Still might want to keep those veggies covered up in the evening hours as our temperatures are getting close to the freezing point. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 41. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. And it's getting closer to the end of the year. Don't forget, get in touch with a good CPA to help you with your taxes. Pope Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, and Company CPAs with offices in Burley at 1710 Overland and Burley and 620 5th Street in Rupert. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear from you. Give me a call, and we'll discuss any topic that we've talked about so far this morning. The National Rifle Association says more Americans over the age of 65 are using guns, and increased training runs are countering decades of a long drop in ownership. In other words, elderly people over 65, I'm in that group, are absolutely scared of being in their homes alone and all the crime and the terrorism, and they're protecting themselves. They know that they are their own first line of defense. And there's an ad on TV, I'm sure you've seen it, of a young woman, and she hears a noise downstairs. And she jumps out of bed and runs over to the chest of drawers and is trying to fumble with the locking device on a gun, the numbers, while the intruder is coming in the room. And she turns around, not being able to get the gun out of the case, and you know the rest. You can see by the look on her face. I know a lot of senior citizens that absolutely have talked to me and said, yes, we're buying a gun for the first time. And when I found this story that actually was in an AARP magazine. It said this at the last paragraph. The pitch is being made that guns are going to protect those over 65. And they need their own protection. And go ahead, caller. I'll finish this in just a moment. I don't want to keep you waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, Zeb, how are you?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hey, Zeb. Hey, I just wanted to, put some comments in here. I really think that this whole thing, with the Clintons and Trump, I'd really like to believe that Trump, the Trumpster is out for us. But my gut feeling, the Lord's just telling me that this is just more of the Hegelian dialectic. They're leading us to a conclusion where we feel that we have a chance, but really, I don't know if he's really going to help us or not.
I can't go that way. I can't, because I have to think of the immediacy of the now. We need a change in the political foray right now. We can't wait. I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to take that risk with Trump. I don't personally like the man. I don't like his demeanor. I don't like his personality. But I will tell you this. I absolutely abhor any thoughts of having Hillary Clinton be the president of the United States and Bubba Bill standing in the shadows, or the Clinton machine. That scares me far worse than anything you could tell me about Donald Trump.
I have to agree with you there. I definitely have to agree with you there. I just see a big calamity, happening in this country. And if you remember the crash of 2008, 2009, I was in the financial sector, and I used to work for the largest privately owned bank in the country. And on the back scenes of that, I met people like Al Gore, Bob Dole, many people that came and spoke as speakers to us at this bank. And I've learned an awful lot from being in that arena that I didn't want to be there anymore. And seeing how they work together and seeing that they are truly their friends. They're not interested in kicking each other out of the political spectrum. They're all interested in staying in together, and they fling a little hash back and forth, but at the end of the day, they're still all going to stay on the top, and we're not going to get any representation.
Well, like I said, I got another call waiting, but I want to say this out of politeness to you and your call, and I thank you for calling in on many occasions. I can't worry about the ifs. Right now, I'm worried about the immediacy of the situation. I know Hillary's tax plan. I know her wanting to give freebies to more and create more of a dole-out society. I know what the world thinks about her as a leader, and I know about her lack of knowledge on security, and I'm scared to death that she's going to win. On the other side, there's an if. Can Trump do this and that? I'm willing to take that chance. Caller, God bless you for your call. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. Caller number 2, go ahead, please. Quickly, you're on the air.
Yes, that when you were talking, or when you were making a commercial just a little bit ago about the CPA office you were talking about.
Yes.
I think it is so important that people, you and I, we know a little bit about everything, but these tax people know everything about what you need to know with your taxes.
They have to.
Like, for instance, Donald Trump taking the route he did with that large loss. If he hadn't done that, he wouldn't be in business, he wouldn't have the assets he's got now, and he wouldn't have these thousands of people not working for him.
Absolutely.
So I would say to the common people like you and I, don't trust what you think you know. Go to someone who does know.
Absolutely.
Which the CPA.
Absolutely. Keith, God bless you. I appreciate your remarks. I got to get a word in here, and thank you very, very much. Thank you. I got a comment on that in just a moment, and I want to get this word in quickly before I have to run back over to Wheels. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 336 South, 450 West of Paul. The number to call, 431-8733. I'll tell you what, call old Scott and the rest of the crew for your tree trimming. Still time to get that done. And don't forget, too, new sprinkler systems or revamping the old one before the weather gets really cold and they have to blow out the old ones. You give them a call at 431-8733. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. Just want to make a quick comment about how naive and basically, yes, use the word dumb, Hillary is over her statement about Donald Trump and the loss of revenue from his casinos. She made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing again. It was on the news this morning. How can anybody lose money in a casino? Well, it's obvious that she doesn't understand. You're betting on the women call of the people coming there to your casino. And boy, you got a big light bill, you got all the fancies to pay for, and if people don't show up and they don't lose their money, you're not going to pay for the building. And a lot of casinos have gone troop down the drain. And for her to say something so naive against Trump about how can anybody lose money on a casino, Hillary really showed her extreme naivete. Next hour, Dr. History coming up. And as a matter of fact, he just walked into the studio. He'll be here next hour. And then at 10:30, Norm Semanko. Don't miss that. Right now, this good word, and then Wheels will take us up to the CBS News. Clown threat. No, it's just Dr. Turner. We'll be with him in just a moment. Hey, don't forget Zeb at the Ranch, and I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. We're going to have Dr. History in just a moment. Don't forget, Ramsey Heating and Electric can offer rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems. All you have to do is call the number 678-0459 and learn how Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox can save you money. You know, it is time for a segment that I just thoroughly enjoy, and it's being heard in nations all over the world, and that's, of course, Dr. History, brought to you by Minnecash Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, with the doctor. Here is Dr. History, the world-famous traveler Ken Turner.
Good morning, Zeb. You sure build me up, you know.
Well, yeah, look out for the fall.
I know.
No, seriously, how are you today?
Doing great.
Good.
Beautiful day. A little cold, but it's okay.
You know, it was a little change to my fat little body walking out to do my morning walk this morning.
Yeah.
I went outside with a light sweatshirt on and pivoted very abruptly and came in and got a jacket.
Yeah, it's getting there, but this is Idaho. What can we say?
Yeah, what are you going to talk about?
Well, I want to start out by saying I want to thank one of our listeners who on my webpage made a comment. He said he really enjoys the stories, but he especially likes the stories about people he's never heard about. The not-so-famous.
The not-so-famous in history.
The not-so-famous. And today, I am going to step out on a limb again and say, I'll bet nobody's heard of this guy.
How come you always pick the limbs that are the biggest and haven't had a saw touch them?
I know. So if somebody's heard about this guy, let me know.
Okay, go ahead.
His name is John L. Hatcher. Okay?
Never heard of him.
Never heard. See, I knew it. Okay, well, let me describe him. Okay? He was a wiry little man full of muscle and as fearless as any plains or mountain man in the Old West.
Mm-hmm.
He had red hair, piercing blue eyes. He was a good shot, which was kind of a good thing to be able to do in the Old West.
Absolutely.
He was also a good poker player.
Uh-oh, look
out. All right. So, good combination right there. Tough, poker player, good shot.
They had to be.
They did, because you were either dead or alive, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Hatcher Hatcher was born July 12th, 1812 in Virginia, and this is where he grew up and received some education. A lot of them had a little bit of education, maybe, a few years. But as a young man, he left Virginia and joined a sister and her husband who had settled in a town in Ohio. And I'm going to pronounce this, Zeb. You tell me if you've ever heard of this. Wapakoneta.
They have, and I'm going to have some people criticize me for this, but they have a farm bureau or a farm information office there. When I was in college, I used to work for a company that used to send out some of their brochures.
Okay. So,
I have heard of that.
Okay. Well,
don't ask me if the pronunciation is correct.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know. Anyway, so here he is out there with his sister and brother-in-law in Ohio. It says, when he arrived wearing a flashy suit of clothes, a local resident asked, quote, "What's that?" Another one replied, quote, "That must be Dandy Jack from Caroline," which in the 1880s, I guess, was kind of a title of a popular song.
Dandy Jack from Caroline.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've heard that song?
No.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so Hatcher found a job in a store, but he didn't like that so well, and he didn't prosper either. He didn't make very much money. So in 1835, he left Ohio, headed west to St. Louis, where he soon got a job with the Bent brothers. Okay. He joined their wagon train and traveled across the prairie and plains to a place called Bent's Old Fort, which is located on the Arkansas River in what is now Colorado. So you have heard of that.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Okay. Well, Hatcher became a trapper, a hunter, and a trader for the Bents, and he made friends with such notable people as Kit Carson and some of the other notable old frontiersmen.
Really?
So, yeah, he was in with that crowd, basically. But again, I don't think anybody's heard of him.
Okay, took their money, though. Right?
Oh, yeah. But anyway, Hatcher made several trips for the company down the Chihuahua Trail into Mexico to buy and sell horses and mules.
Wow.
That in itself is quite an event.
Yeah.
But he also is known to have traveled as far north as the North Platte River, and while opening trade with the Kiowa Indians, he was kind of adopted into their tribe. And this happened a number of times with some of the mountain men. They would become good friends with the chief and one thing and another. But anyway, he soon gained a reputation as an expert marksman, a good storyteller, and a diplomat without fear in his dealings with the Indians. And they had a name for him. They called him Freckled Hand.
Freckled Hand?
Freckled Hand.
Oh, okay.
Now, this might be a good time to take a break.
Yeah, before we lose everything. Old Freckled Hand. All right, don't forget Zach and the crew over at Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. Easy to find, easy to get into, and absolutely the easiest people to work with. They want to help you, especially like with the upgrade of your windows to the Western windows. Save on your heating bills this winter. Check out those windows with Zach and the crew, and they can help get a contractor over to your location to install those windows too. Check it out today, along with all the lumber and the Tartar Farm and Ranch gates and panels, everything at Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, and they bring you Dr. History.
Okay, so now we've got Mr. Hatcher. He's a friend of the Kiowa Indians, adopted into their tribe. They called him Freckled Hand. So now in 1845, Hatcher and a guy named Caleb Greenwood, which also had worked for the Bent company, accompanied a Lieutenant James W. Albert's scientific expedition from Bent's Fort to the Canadian River.
Okay.
Now, Hatcher assured the Comanches and the Kiowas that Albert and his men were not hostile. So basically, he was kind of a protector of these guys.
Okay.
And it was good to have him along.
So he assured the Indians
that these guys were okay.
That they were good guys.
Right, and to not bother them.
Okay.
So everything went good. He then served as a guide for 2 small military expeditions. And after nearly 2 decades in New Mexico, Hatcher and 15 other men left house in early 1853 to drive a herd of cattle to Placerville, California. Now, that's a pretty good jaunt.
Yeah,
right
it is.
there.
You said from Taos, New Mexico?
Yeah.
All the way to Placerville?
Yeah. Now, that's quite a ways.
It is.
And actually, they went by way of Fort Laramie and South Pass. So they came clear up into Wyoming.
Yeah, they must have been almost to the tip of the bottom part, I should say, of Idaho and the top part of Utah.
Yeah, so part of it had to be on the Oregon Trail and the California Trail.
Holy
I'm
cow,
thinking.
yeah.
So, anyway, Hatcher returned east from the Gila Trail from Los Angeles, reaching New Mexico by December of 1853.
Wow.
Now, by spring of 1854, he entered the Santa Fe trade and in time enjoyed a lot of success trading and freighting goods between Missouri and Santa Fe. Having a rough time talking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Hatcher's got you all choked
He's
up.
got me choked up. So, okay, here we are. Summer of 1857. Hatcher, then about 45 years old, which is not young.
No.
Set out in early spring.
Wait a minute. I just had a birthday. I'm offended by that.
Well, neither one of us are going to see 45 again.
No.
Anyway, so 45 sets out early spring with a caravan of 15 wagons and about as many men. Their destination was Westport, which is now part of Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
So this is where they're headed. Well, Hatcher's men had been driving their wagons two abreast for protection. They were in Indian country, but as they approached a place called Wagon Mound on the plains of northeastern New Mexico. Have you ever heard of that one?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
It's probably just a landmark of some kind.
Okay.
But anyway, Hatcher gave the order, and the wagons began to move in single file. All the open, they were on this open, rolling plains, and Hatcher knew that Indians, if there were any, were waiting, and they could be seen from a long ways away.
Yeah.
Because they were on this open prairie.
Sure.
Well, the wagons had hardly had time to move into single file when suddenly a large band of Indians rode over a small rise in the ground ahead and headed straight for the caravan.
Oh, this sounds bad.
They were Comanches.
Oh, boy.
But they were not attacking. The Indian chiefs, there were 6 or 7 leading the warriors, they were giving the peace sign.
Really?
Yeah. So here they come. So there's got to be a lot of things going through your mind if you're Hatcher.
Yeah,
right?
run.
Yeah. So anyway, Hatcher knew the ways of the Comanches, and he suspected they were coming to murder and rob. Okay. Hatcher, however, returned the sign of peace, whatever that was, I'm not sure. He had little choice, obviously. Then he quickly gave the order to his men to corral their wagons in a circle and to stand by for trouble.
Uh-oh.
So, as the Indian chiefs came ahead of their braves, Hatcher saw that their leader was a guy by the name of Old Wolf.
Old Wolf.
Chief Old Wolf.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think anybody's heard of Old Wolf.
Well, he was reincarnated, and that's what Hillary is
Old
today.
Wolf. Chief Old Wolf. Wolf. Okay. So the old Indian had been responsible for a lot of raids on the southern plains, and they had made Old Wolf's name kind of a terror. They were afraid of him, especially among the Mexicans traveling the Santa Fe Trail.
Oh, my.
So, anyway, Hatcher cautiously welcomed Old Wolf and the other chiefs and invited them to have some refreshments. A blanket was thrown on the ground, and Hatcher seated himself beside Old Wolf, and they actually gave them some sugar.
Really?
So, here's something that probably they either didn't know or didn't have very often. Anyway, as Old Wolf and the other chiefs finished eating, Hatcher asked Old Wolf to send his young braves away over the hill. Now, the braves were standing beside their horses not very far from the wagons. At this, Old Wolf and his chief stood up, and so did Hatcher, who already sensed the old Indian's answer. Well, waiting for a reply, Hatcher grabbed Old Wolf's hair with his left hand. With his right hand, Hatcher took his knife from its scabbard and held it to the chief's throat.
This does not sound good.
Okay. So he said, Old Wolf says, "Send your braves over the hill now, or I will kill you right where you are." He demanded that. I mean, this. Can you picture this whole thing?
Yeah, he wasn't a very big guy, though,
He
was
wasn't
he?
very big, but he was tough.
Yeah.
And, okay, so here you are, you're Old Wolf. This guy's got a hold of your hair and a knife at your throat.
Yeah.
And Old Wolf shook his head. He said, "No, I'm not going to do it." Well, Hatcher said, "Send them on, or I'll scalp you alive as you are." And he said this in a pretty firm voice.
Oh, this doesn't
Now,
sound
again, Old Wolf shook his head.
Really?
He said, "No."
Did he understand?
Well, I think what happens next maybe have brought the point home.
Oh, I see.
So, a second later, Hatcher began to carry out his threat.
To scalp him?
He started slowly. Okay, blood trickled from a tiny incision on Old Wolf's hairline down the Indian's forehead. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody had a hold of our hair, which there's not a lot.
Don't go there.
Okay. Old Wolf kind of weakened just a little.
He did.
He ordered in his next command to send the young braves over the hill. So the order was given, and the astonished braves quickly mounted their horses and rode away.
What about the other chiefs?
We're going to talk about them here in just a
I
second.
thought you never asked.
Okay. So, still holding Old Wolf's hair, Hatcher ordered his men to unload their wagons. They did, piling bundles of pelts and furs inside the circle of wagons as a barricade. Then Hatcher's men, climbing behind their barricades, passed out ammunition and prepared for the battle that they figured was still going to come.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when Hatcher saw that his men were ready, he let go of Old Wolf's hair, gave the Indian a swift kick in the pants,
Really?
little humiliated, and told the chiefs to leave. So the other chiefs were still there, watching this.
Yeah.
And they did it in a hurry. Hatcher quickly joined his men and prepared for the attack that they figured was going to come.
Yeah.
I mean, here they are. They're outnumbered.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The expected Indian attack still had not come as the sun began to set. So Hatcher and his men remained on watch until dark. Still, no sign of Old Wolf or his band. None of them.
No kidding.
So, but, you know, if you're Hatcher, you got to be thinking, okay, they're just waiting.
Yeah.
Right? So, anyway, the night passed uneventfully. By dawn, there was still no sign of the Indians, so Hatcher made the decision to move on. Again, that was kind of a brave move at this point.
No, getting out of there was not a brave move. It was one of necessity.
It was, yeah, because you can't stay there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he gave the order, and the men reloaded their wagons, so the caravan continued slowly toward the east and Westport, where they were headed.
I see.
The remainder of the journey was actually peaceful. They did not see another Indian.
Really?
So, you got to ask yourself why Old Wolf and his band did not attack the wagon train.
Because it was the first original barbershop.
It was maybe that little cut on his forehead. Don't know.
Ooh.
But they outnumbered Hatcher and his men. It may have been that Old Wolf had lost face among his chiefs and braves, or that he had lost the element of surprise against Hatcher and his men.
Yeah, he might have been replaced, huh?
Well, you know how it was with the Indians. You earned chiefdom or whatever by your brave acts.
Right.
And so, you know, they may have thought, you know, you let this white man almost scalp you and you'd have been better off to let him kill you. Maybe.
Yeah, but the other chiefs didn't do anything either.
No, they were just standing around watching.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like watching an old I Love Lucy movie.
I know. You know, what's he going to do next?
Yeah.
So, anyway, there was a Colonel Dodge who was a plainsman and soldier, and he wrote in 1877, here's what he wrote. As a rule, the Indian relies upon surprise, upon the effect of a sudden and furious dash to demoralize his enemy and render him sure prey. So, if surprise had been Old Wolf's aim, he had not succeeded. So a more likely answer may have been Hatcher's bravery. Again, his actions undoubtedly gained him sudden respect from Old Wolf.
Now, is it true that if they would have shot or killed the chief, or all of those chiefs, that they would have disbanded and gone back to select a new chief?
And that's probably could have been what happened as well.
I see.
Yes. But again, the Indians had a lot to do with bravery, and with Hatcher being pretty much a brave guy to grab their chief.
A little guy, too.
Yeah, to grab the chief's hair and hold a knife to his throat and then start to scalp him.
Wow.
So, anyway, it was probably this sudden respect for Hatcher by Old Wolf and the other Indians that saved Hatcher and his men.
Really?
So, Old Wolf had to consider Hatcher a pretty brave guy, too, to do this.
Yeah.
So later that summer, Hatcher returned to Santa Fe, made a trip over the trail the following year in 1858, and never once was he troubled by Indians.
Did the chief have to buy a toupee?
You know, they probably had them back at camp. Used ones. But anyway, Hatcher later moved to California where he bought a large ranch. He settled down, and still later he moved to a place called Lynn County, Oregon.
Yeah.
And he died at the age of 85
Wow.
in 1898. And, you know, we've talked before about old age.
Yeah,
along the
opened up a
frontier.
barbershop, didn't he?
Those guys, if they made it past really 50 or 60.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But and the fate of Old Wolf is not known. They really don't know what happened to him. And again, maybe he was demoted as chief and maybe even kicked out of the tribe. Who knows?
Well, now this John Hatcher, Frecklehand.
Yes.
Did he ever resort back to gambling?
You know, it does not say.
Yeah.
But the fact that he lived to be as old as he was, I'm thinking the only gambling he did was to be a rancher.
Well, I wonder where he got all of his money.
And that's a good question, too. But, stagecoach drivers and people that were leading wagon trains and stuff like that, they usually were paid pretty well.
How long was he on that cattle drive? I'd like to pursue that and find out the route and everything. To go clear from Taos, New Mexico, very dry country, across dry country, to get to Placerville.
Yeah, and you would think a more direct route would have been south.
Oh, yeah, but there's no water.
Right.
And no forage.
And so my thought is that maybe he knew by coming up through this area, actually right through where we're at right now, where we live.
Yeah.
And one time out here not too far west and south of us was one of the largest cattle ranches in the world.
Cattle ranch or cattle drive?
Cattle ranch.
Well, I was going to say, you had a story once about a year or 2 years ago about a cattle drive that went right through, the western part of our state, down through Bruno and everywhere else, did you?
And actually right through here.
Yeah.
Right through Cassia County along the Snake River.
Yeah.
Which I had not ever thought of before, but yeah, there were cattle drives that went through here.
Really?
So that's the story of John Hatcher and how Chief Old Wolf nearly lost his scalp.
No kidding. So it was kind of reverse psychology there, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of some of the other stories with old Jim Bridger, and there's some pretty interesting stories where these guys were brave.
Did they ever have any stories that you have in all the recording of different frontier stories of the humor of the American Indian? I've read stories or heard about stories to where they had quite a sense of humor.
Yes. In talking about some of the people that lived with the Indians sometimes for several years, they had games that they played.
Yep.
They
had advanced games in some respect, and I'm trying to think of the tribe to where they almost came up to what we have today with certain games like baseball and other things.
Well, and lacrosse.
Yeah.
Lacrosse was one that was, in fact, there's a story on our webpage right now that goes back to Indian athletics. It was one I did a couple of years ago that talks about some of the sports they did that if you were on the losing side, sometimes the Indian women would beat you with a willow to get you excited to get back in there and win the game.
They weren't exactly like your Dallas Cowgirl cheerleaders, were they?
Exactly.
No.
In fact, there was one game, and I can't remember what it was called, where they had like a rock underwater, and they would try to get this rock to a goal. It was all underwater.
They had to be underwater.
Yeah.
Really?
I'd have to go back and look at that story again.
Well, how did they know if the rock was put in the proper place to win?
I guess the water was clear enough that you could see.
Okay. How long were they down there?
I don't know.
Oh. Let me do a commercial break before you leave. I need to visit with you. But ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Dr. History. Great story this morning about old Freckled Hand. And, of course, brought to you by Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. You stop in and see Zach and the crew today. All your lumber, all your windows, everything you need for remodeling right there at Minnecasia Sales. Thank you very much. By the way, too, on Thursdays, we have a special segment on our program, and that, of course, is called School Days in Cassia County. Don't forget, brought to you by A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. And boy, have they got all kinds of jeans and shirts and socks. Everybody needs socks. Boy, I got a sock drawer I got to go through and weed out the bad ones and get the good ones. Well, they've got them right there at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. And also the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. All your outpatient surgeries like colonoscopies, knee surgeries, hand surgeries, and now the only place in southern Idaho for glaucoma surgery. Right there at Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland in Burley, 677-8888. Along with A Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County. Well, we thank again Dr. History for being on our program, and we're going to send this back over to our main studios for a couple of minutes and have a report at 10:30, pardon me, and then we're going to come back in just a few moments with Norm Simanko. This is a very serious serious subject this morning about the EPA and their absolute taking of radical steps to control each and every drop of our water, whether it's even in a puddle in your backyard or in a tire track in your front driveway. It's going to be very interesting with Norm Simanko with the Idaho Water Users Association. We'll be back in 3. Don't go away.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much and welcome back. Zeb at the Ranch, our last half hour this morning. And before we get our next guest on the air, I'd like to remind you again about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Oh, my goodness, they've got all your flooring, and they've got, of course, all your entertainment stands, your recliners, and, of course, if you have a spouse that snores, they can help you with that, too. Introducing the Beauty Rest Smart Motion Base powered by Sleep Tracker. You can kind of raise and lower the bed, and then all of a sudden you can say, oh, finally, I can get to sleep. Check all this out at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. My next guest has been on this program many, many times, and I have the utmost respect for him and his knowledge, a lawyer and also the head of the Idaho Water Users Association. When it comes to water and what's going on with government control or lack of, this man knows. Norm Simanko, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you? Good to talk to you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the air. Now, let me preface what we're going to talk about a little bit by a program that I had 2 weeks ago, and it was with one of the attorneys with the Pacific Legal Foundation, and he scared me to death about the EPA and the new try for more control over our water with the waters of the United States. Wow. How bad is this anyway, Norm?
Well, Zeb, it's just your typical federal expansion of power. Just as recently as a week ago, we saw a report released by the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works concluding that the federal government is just expanding its power with this waters of the United States stuff. I think the term they used was running rogue, and that it was time for Congress to rein in the agencies. So we've certainly seen a lot of activity in that direction, folks in Congress, in the courts. Damien certainly was talking about that from Pacific Legal Foundation. There are good friends who we've worked with in the past on some of these issues. So it's a big deal. It's going to, if it goes into effect and is allowed to stay into effect, because of course the court has put a stay on it for now. It can't go into effect right now until the courts decide. But it will change the way folks operate out on the ground. It will have a huge impact with the federal government, EPA, working further and further down our water systems, our irrigation systems, and everything else, the farms. The sky's the limit for the federal government under this rule.
You know, Norm, nobody knows more about this than you do, and I brag about you, but you are very eloquent and knowledgeable about what might happen and will happen. But in what I was reading about plowing and disking, I mean, this could have outlandish effects on farming and providing food to the millions all over the world. The agriculture is really going to take a hit over this thing. I'd like you to broad base your comments about what I just said.
Well, you're exactly right, Zeb, and let me just preface this by saying 30 years ago, people couldn't imagine the things that the federal government has reached its tentacles to in terms of the farm and irrigation. We never would have thought that when the Clean Water Act was passed in the 70s, and at the same time we had an act regulating pesticides, that somehow the Clean Water Act would be used to reach into aquatic herbicides and things that are used in irrigation canals. But sure enough, because of environmentalist lawsuits, activist courts, and the march of time, and people forgetting what legislative intent was, we now see that. We see aquatic herbicides, pesticides, mosquito spraying, all of these things that are completely regulated under the pesticide laws, now also needing a Clean Water Act permit. So I say that as a preface because a lot of what you and I are going to say this morning, people are going to say, well, that's lunacy. Nobody's going to try to regulate plowing on the farm or whatever. But that's exactly what happens over time when you see these additional regulations, these additional laws that are done by the agencies, by EPA and the Corps, and then they're brought to the courts, and the activist environmental litigators like to bring these fact patterns and make these arguments to these appointed judges who sit in ivory towers, and all of a sudden you get a decision that says, yeah, that makes sense. We really need to regulate plowing in a farm because that plowing in the farm could end up impacting a wetland somewhere, and that could get into a stream and affect somebody's water supply. So, yeah, that's what we should do. We should regulate that. So you're exactly right, Zeb. The more that the federal government tinkers with, redefines what waters of the United States is, what navigable waters are, the more that we start seeing them regulating not just water, the rivers and the streams, but also land and land use activities. And this is the battle on the Clean Water Act that goes back 40 years. If you look at the legislative history, it was clear that Congress did not intend, maybe some in Congress did, but Congress as a whole passed an act that regulated end-of-the-pipe discharges by industry and similar types of municipal discharges, not on farm activities, not land use activities. That was left to the states. And there were cooperative programs that were set up under Section 208, Section 319 of the Clean Water Act, and lo and behold, that's not good enough for certain folks. So they chip away with this activist environmental litigation. They chip away with these rules and regulations that they get the EPA and the Corps of Engineers to adopt. So that is the battle that we're fighting. Forget all the hooey. People pretend like it doesn't do what it says it does. It does. This is a battle over whether or not the federal government's power is going to be expanded to land use activities that are traditionally and purposefully in the past regulated at the state and local level. And anyone that thinks it's otherwise is living in la-la land. That is what this is about. That's the battle in the courts and the battle in Congress right now. The presidential election will have a lot to do with that because, of course, the next president, I was just reading in the Capitol Press this morning, is going to have a lot of say over whether that rule continues and whether and how it's implemented if it's upheld by the courts. And also the position that the federal government will take in the litigation and how actively they will defend that rule or abandon it, depending on who's president.
I have 4 of the statements. I'd like to read 3 of them and save the 4th one for a moment, and we have a caller. But let me read this quickly. Caller, stay on the line. I'll be right with you. Plowing to shallow depths is not exempt when the Corps calls the soil between furrows mini mountain ranges, uplands, and dryland. Disking is regulated even though it is a type of plowing. And here's one that really bothers me and scares me, actually, Norm. Changing from one agricultural commodity constitutes a new use of the land that eliminates the exemption. So you can't have alfalfa one year and maybe go to beans the next year. You'd lose all your rights. Is that the way I'm reading this? Is that correct?
All kinds of exceptions, all kinds of tentacles by the federal government to figure out a way to reach into your activities. You can find someone that will argue that you're wrong, but you can certainly find a fact pattern and a regulator down the road who's going to say under that new rule, that's exactly the result. So I don't disagree with you at all.
Okay.
The result, depending on who the regulator is you're dealing with, which region of EPA, which prosecutor from Department of Justice you're dealing with, what kind of settlement they're going to propose on you, what kind of fine they're going to try to put on you. Absolutely. We see it all the time with expansive interpretations of federal laws.
Okay, we have a caller with a question. Caller, I'm limited on time, but go ahead, please.
Well, when you have the governor of Oregon who believes in all of this and wants to institute this, and the governor of Washington, Inslee, the same way, and we know Brown from California is off his rocker, and here we are, the last bastion of hope maybe here in Idaho, and even I believe, Butch is doing something, but I don't think Butch is fighting back as hard as he ought to. But when the states try to push back a little, it can maybe slow some of this down.
But you see, it's literally closing in around us, and I'll hang up.
Norm, would you respond to the caller, please?
Great comment. When I spent time on the Western States Water Council appointed by the governor, I saw that Washington and Oregon had a little bit different view than Idaho does, and Montana and Wyoming. It's an easy answer. The federal government needs to back off. They need to regulate what is traditionally regulated under the Clean Water Act and leave land use activities to the states. Let those debates occur at the state level and at the local level in each of the respective states. Don't do it from a national level with a do-gooder rule or an interpretation that you think should be placed on everyone. So let each state do their own regulation of land use activities, of irrigation practices, and we know how that turns out in Idaho. I'm not so sure how it turns out in Washington and Oregon, but that's the easy answer. As far as what Idaho is doing, they were one of the first parties to run into the federal district court in North Dakota with the state of North Dakota and to get that rule set aside while it's litigated through the courts. So it's always good for our elected officials to hear that we're concerned about this water is the U.S. rule. We're concerned about the impacts it can have on irrigation and farming and other land use activities. But I do think the state has engaged in trying to protect Idaho's interests, and we need them to hear from us so that they will continue to do that.
Norm, the idiocy and incompetency of the EPA operating underneath assumed powers, and one paragraph I wanted to save and have a special comment on this. They want to regulate puddles, tire ruts, sheet flow, and standing water all can be renamed disturbed wetlands and regulated. Norm, 2 weeks ago we had so much rain in my arena. I had absolutely 4 to 5 inches of water out there, and I rerouted a lot of that water to get it drained so that I could eventually get in there with a harrow and get things worked up. I was absolutely against what their proposed law would be in regulations, and I would have been guilty for rerouting the water. Could I not?
Again, you can find an interpretation by a bureaucrat sitting in Seattle or a prosecutor, Department of Justice person sitting in Denver or Washington, D.C. The bottom line here, Zeb, is that this rule should not have any support politically. It should be knocked out by the new president, by Congress. But even if that doesn't happen, the fact that this is in the courts, it's illegal on at least 2 different levels. Number one, the rule is so expansive, it's beyond the scope of the Clean Water Act as written and as passed by Congress. And then secondly, it's beyond the reach of the Constitution, beyond the powers of the Commerce Clause to reach down into your arena, into your activities on your individual ranch. That's beyond the scope of the Commerce Clause, the Interstate Commerce Clause, what's allowed to be regulated under the Clean Water Act and other federal acts. There is a boundary in the Constitution. The courts are the ones that make those decisions, that have to enforce that. That's what I know Damien was talking about. They help as guardians of that through Pacific Legal Foundation, and we need to support efforts like that to get clarification in the courts that this rule, and this is a very much a live issue. You don't hear about it a lot because it's not something that lends itself to writing headlines, but there is a lot of activity going on in the courts right now, in the federal courts, to decide this rule, and hopefully it will be set aside by one or more of the federal courts so we can get back to some sanity on this.
Norm, when you look at the EPA, and I think you probably have some horror stories that you could share with us, these people, in my opinion, they're thugs and punks, and they're acting like mob regulators, and they really have assumed powers that they've let grow like a cancer over the many years. Why hasn't someone or a group of someones called their cards on the table face up, and we've got rid of a lot of this bureaucracy and thuggery from the EPA?
Well, Zeb, I don't ascribe evil motives to people. I think they just have different views of the best way to govern, and they don't believe in laissez-faire. They don't believe in state and local control. They believe in command and control from a central government, that's the way to control things, and whether you call it the nanny state or whatever you want to call it, that's their view. And this is a huge ship, and the ship is headed a certain direction. Been headed a certain direction for a while, and all of these bureaucrats are on that ship heading that direction. Until you get the ship turned around, you get new folks on the ship to run the ship. That's what elections are about. So it starts with the presidential election. It certainly matters who gets elected to the legislature, to various state houses, to governor and the Senate. That's why this election coming up is so important. But until that happens, until that ship gets turned around or the courts intervene as a third branch of government and inject some sanity into this debate, you're going to see that continue, because those folks that have that view of how things should be conducted and how things should be governed and how we should all be taken care of in the nanny state, they're the ones driving the boat right now.
You know, Norm, another subject I wanted you to cover this morning in a short period of time, another story coming out that there's going to be more discussion on breaching the 4 dams on the lower Snake River. The environmentalists want their way, and they want those dams out of there. What's happening? How can we fight this?
Well, yeah, this is a huge story that's kind of hidden in the headlines. We'll hear more about it over the next couple of years, but you've had 3 different judges presiding over the salmon litigation in Portland, and this most recent judge, there was hope that he would uphold the most recent biological opinion that governs how the dams are operated, and he did not. He struck down the 10-year biological opinion that expires in 2018, and a biological opinion is just the agency's opinion on whether or not the river can be run and the projects can be run in a way that don't jeopardize the continued existence of the salmon. He said, no, I don't think the way you're doing things works. I want you to go back to the drawing board. It ended up being 5 years to do an environmental impact statement, and I want you to consider the whole range of alternatives under an EIS, under the National Environmental Policy Act, under NEPA, and that should include things like potential dam removal. So he didn't order dam removal. What he ordered is a review by the federal agencies of all potential alternatives that would include structural changes like removing dams. And we are very worried in Idaho, certainly amongst the irrigation community, what different kinds of alternatives the agencies are going to look at, what that could mean for Idaho water, looking for trying to flush fish to the ocean, that whole debate and story coming back up. We're concerned for the Port of Lewiston, what dam removal can mean for them, for electricity, on the public grid, through BPA. All of those things are up in the air. So they are to adopt a new biological opinion by 2018. Be interesting to see what they come up with, and to do this NEPA analysis over the next 5 years. So that whole public discourse is starting. They have announced scoping hearings that are going to be held all over the Northwest, and we're going to see hearings in Boise and Lewiston, and then up north as well. And there is an opportunity to request additional hearings, and I'm not sure if the state will be asking for hearings in places in eastern Idaho or the Magic Valley, but that's certainly a possibility for those scoping hearings to be requested during October, November, or sometime later in other parts of Idaho.
Norm, with your expertise and short answer on this, if you can, I'm down to about 3 or 4 minutes left. What would it do economically to start with these 4 dams and breach those dams, and then they want more? The environmental movement always wants more. It would spell the end of hydroelectricity for this Northwest, wouldn't it?
Well, the folks that run the hydro system are the experts, and they could comment. But certainly when you're talking about, and I've heard anywhere between 5 and 10% of the total power in the Northwest, enough to power Seattle or the state of Montana, you take that out of the equation. What are you going to replace that with? Coal? That's a mile-long train of coal every day or something like that, I've heard. What do you want to replace it with? What impacts are going to have on our transportation system to get agricultural and other goods to the ocean through the seaport at Lewiston and the other places that we do that along the Columbia and Snake River? So, and the list goes on and on about the potential impacts. So yeah, there are huge potential economic, social impacts of taking out that system that, of course, began with the New Deal and was completed in the 70s.
Norm, last thought. What would you tell my audience this morning that they need to do to be involved and to be aware of as to what's going on, not only with the EPA, but also with the environmental movements to take out the dams, etc.? People need to get involved. What can they do?
You've got to contact your elected officials. You need to let them know. Don't just expect that because they heard you before and they were responsive before that they're there are other issues out there. There's health care. There's, all the plate of issues that are out there that are obviously important as well. Folks that are in elected positions that are running for office, the opinion leaders need to know that these issues are important. We need to protect agriculture. We need to continue to maintain the quality of life that we have in Idaho, and one of the ways to do that is to protect irrigated agriculture, to protect the systems and the infrastructure that have been built to support irrigated agriculture, whether it's the irrigation delivery system or whether it's the mechanism to get the goods to market. That's as simple as it gets. Let your elected officials know. We're doing a candidate survey right now. We're getting those answers back from the candidates. We'll be sharing those with our members, educating people what the positions of the candidates are so they can make an informed decision.
Absolutely. A good friend of this program, and I really appreciate his time this morning, with the Idaho Water Users Association, Norm Simanko. God bless you, my dear friend. Please come back soon. Thank you so much.
You too. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.
All right, sir. Thank you. Norm Simanko, and like I said, I have the utmost respect to his ability and what he's doing, trying to help protect us from the likes of the EPA and others. Wow, can you imagine they want to regulate even the puddles in your yard after a rainfall? Whew, scary. Right now, I'd like to bring the weather to you, and it is brought this hour by Scarro's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome, the number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Your locally owned custom meat processor for over 20 years. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew, always with absolutely premium delicious meats. You be sure and get a hold of them today, Scarro's Meats. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like it's still going to be on the breezy side for today. Here is what your weather looks like. Winds out of the southwest right around 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies. Looking at a high of 54 for today. Tonight low of 37. Tomorrow exactly the same as today. Partly cloudy skies. Still slightly breezy. High of 54 with an overnight low of 35. Partly cloudy and 56 for Thursday. And for Friday and Saturday, sunny skies. Highs are going to be in the low to mid 60s. Still might want to keep those veggies covered up in the evening hours as our temperatures are getting close to the freezing point. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 41. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
And I appreciate your job on the weather forecast every day. Gina, thank you very much. And brought to you this hour by Scarro's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. Changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. By the way, you've heard us mention the Junction Pumpkin Function is going to be coming up on October 27th. We're going to be over there doing a live remote broadcast for the full 3 hours of this program, and that's located at 2421 Overland in Burley, and it's going to be frightfully wonderful. We're going to start the morning off at 7 a.m. with a great big ghoulishly delicious breakfast, and we're going to have a costume contest, and they're going to be selling creep candy for Halloween. It's really funny. It's really great. You got to check that out. And also all the T-shirts for the Junction Pumpkin Function at $15 each. And all the proceeds of everything they're going to do, the pumpkin contest, the carving and the painting and everything else, all the net proceeds go to the Meals on Wheels. So we really want to say thank you very much to all the folks over there, led by their director, Catherine Walcroft, and the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function coming up on October 27th. Please be a part of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also want to say thank you very much to our dear friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a great big fall tire sale. My goodness sakes, whether it's your car, whether it's your pickup, whether it's your SUV, you stop in today and check out the tires that best will suit your driving and all the miles that you put on. I'll tell you, they've got all the different tread designs, and they can help you. Big tire sale going on right now at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And don't forget always the best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts, and batteries. A little bit chilly out there this morning, down in the mid-30s. Well, that means colder weather's on the way, and you want to make sure you check your battery, and if it's not going to do the job, get a new one. And they've got the best in batteries right there at all 7 locations. With Lane and Rupert, Dave on Bluley, Blue Lakes in Twin, Attaboy Zeb, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, Twist Family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. That's going to wrap it up for me today. And we've got a whole bunch of great folks coming on the air tomorrow, and we certainly hope you'll tune in at 8:06. Yep, that's when we'll saddle the horse, and we'll ride for 3 hours. The first hour, of course, kind of an open forum. We'll talk about different subjects and invite your phone calls. And then for the remainder of all the segments on the program, we'll have guests on the air that, again, we invite your phone calls and your comments right here at Zeb at the Ranch on K-Bar 1230 a.m. and then streaming live daily on zebbell.com. And don't forget to get signed up for the Cow Pies and Coffee Cups. We're expanding everything, and we'd like you to be a part of it. Just click on all the information, give us your email address, and we'll send it to you. But until tomorrow at 8:06, remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you much.